Hello, and welcome to ABC English Story. Today, we have a powerful story about work, betrayal, and the long, cold road of revenge. It's about what happens when someone is pushed too far after years of loyalty. Get ready for Boss Fired Me after 17 years with no warning, but I knew something they didn't. Let's begin. Boss fired me after 17 years with no warning, but I knew something they didn't. The fluorescent lights of the Human Resources office seemed to hum with a special kind of indifference that Tuesday. I, Arthur Jenkins, sat on a cheap chair, the kind that always felt a little unstable, like it might give out at any moment. Much like my career, I thought, with a grimace I didn't show. Across the desk, Brenda from HR, a woman I'd exchanged polite nods with for a decade, avoided my eyes. Beside her, Mr. Henderson, my boss of 17 years, looked at a spot on the wall just over my left shoulder. 17 years. I'd started at Sterling Solutions when I was 25, full of energy and ideas. I'd poured my life into this company, into my work as a senior logistics analyst. I'd seen it grow, I'd helped it grow. My wife, Sarah, and I had planned our lives around this job, the mortgage on our small suburban house, our daughter Emily's college fund. Arthur, Henderson began, his voice flat, like he was reading a weather report. The company is moving in a new direction, restructuring. Unfortunately, your position has become redundant. Redundant. That was the word they used, like an old machine part that was no longer needed. Not fired for cause, not laid off with a group. Just redundant. After 17 years, with no warning, no discussion, not even a hint. The severance package they offered was a joke, barely enough to cover 3 months of bills. The injustice of it burned in my chest, a cold, hard knot. I'd given them my best years. I'd worked late, come in on weekends, solved problems Henderson himself couldn't untangle. And for what? To be discarded like yesterday's newspaper. I see, I managed to say, my own voice sounding distant. I didn't plead. I didn't argue. What was the point? Their minds were made up. I signed the papers Brenda pushed across the table, my hand steady. But inside, something was breaking, and something else. Something cold and sharp was taking its place as I packed the few personal items from my desk, a photo of Sarah and Emily, a chipped mug, a worn-out stress ball. I felt the eyes of my colleagues. Some looked away, embarrassed. Others offered pitying glances. They knew it was wrong. They just didn't know what Henderson didn't know. I knew his secret. It wasn't a big, dramatic secret, not like in the movies. It was small, almost boring, but potentially devastating for him. For years, Henderson had been quietly rerouting small percentages of funds from overseas shipping contracts into a personal holding company. Tiny amounts, almost untraceable, from dozens of accounts each month. He thought no one would notice. But I was a logistics analyst. I lived in spreadsheets. I saw patterns. I'd noticed the discrepancies about 2 years ago. Small leaks in the financial ship. I'd even flagged it once, very subtly, in a report, thinking it was an error in the system. Henderson had personally told me it was a known accounting variable, and to not waste time on it. His dismissive tone then, his nervousness now, it all clicked. He was firing me not because I was redundant, but because he was getting sloppy, and maybe he worried I was getting too close to his little game. Or maybe he just needed a scapegoat if things got tight. The first few weeks after the firing were a blur of anger and despair. Sarah was supportive, but I could see the worry in her eyes. The job market for a 42-year-old logistics analyst wasn't exactly booming. The days stretched out, empty and silent. The silence gave me time to think. And the more I thought about Henderson, about his smug face and his casual cruelty, the more that cold, sharp thing inside me grew. My plan wasn't born in a flash of inspiration. It was built slowly, piece by piece, fueled by sleepless nights and endless cups of bitter coffee. I wouldn't go to the police, not directly. That was too quick, too clean. Henderson deserved to feel what I felt. The slow, creeping dread, the uncertainty, the feeling of his world crumbling around him. I started by creating an anonymous email account. Then, I began to compile my evidence, copies of spreadsheets I'd backed up to a personal drive, a habit from my early, more cautious days, cross-referencing shipping manifests with financial outflows. I highlighted the accounting variables. My first target wasn't Henderson himself, but Mr. Davies, a relatively new member of the board of directors, known for his meticulous nature and his lack of strong ties to Henderson's old guard. I sent him an email, a carefully worded message hinting at potential irregularities in overseas contract management that warrant a closer, independent review. I attached a single, heavily redacted spreadsheet, just enough to pique his interest, not enough to reveal my full hand or identify myself. For weeks, nothing happened. I scanned the financial news, the company's press releases. Silence. The doubt began to gnaw at me. Maybe Davies had dismissed it. Maybe Henderson's tracks were too well covered. Then, one Monday morning, an industry blog I followed posted a short piece. Rumblings of internal audit at Sterling Solutions. Sources suggest potential financial mismanagement. My heart hammered. It was starting. The next few months were a masterclass in watching a man unravel from a distance. Sterling Solutions announced an internal review. Then, they hired an external forensic accounting firm. Henderson, who usually walked the office halls like he owned the world, was rarely seen. When he was, colleagues I still kept in quiet touch with described him as pale, agitated, snapping at everyone. He must have suspected the leak came from within, but he wouldn't suspect me. I was gone, forgotten, redundant. The beauty of it was that I didn't have to do much more. I had planted the seed in fertile ground. Henderson's own paranoia and attempts to cover his tracks likely made things worse for him. The auditors, once they had a thread to pull, would unravel the whole rotten tapestry. The day the news officially broke, I was sitting in a small park near my house, watching Emily fly a kite. Sarah called me, her voice a mix of shock and something else. Understanding, maybe. "Arthur, have you seen the news about Henderson? Sterling Solutions? They're saying he embezzled millions." Millions. It was more than I thought. My small leaks were just the tip of the iceberg. Henderson hadn't just been skimming. He'd been plundering. I watched Emily laugh as the kite dipped and soared. A sense of victory, yes, but it was a hollow, quiet thing. It didn't bring my job back. It didn't erase the humiliation or the fear I'd felt. Henderson was ruined, his career over, facing legal charges. Justice of a sort. But the cost? I had spent months consumed by this. I had become someone who operated in shadows, who manipulated from afar. Sarah looked at me differently now, with a touch of awe, perhaps, but also a little fear. What else was I capable of? I wasn't sure I knew the answer myself. The revenge was complete. Henderson was gone. But the satisfaction wasn't the explosion of triumph I might have once imagined. It was more like the slow, quiet settling of dust after a building has collapsed. The old structure was gone, and what was left was an empty space, and me, standing in the ruins, wondering what to build next, and if I'd ever truly be free of the shadow of those 17 years, and the 17 minutes that ended them. The world felt a little colder, a little harsher, but also, strangely, a little more honest. I had seen the ugly truth, and I had acted. Now I had to live with the man I had become. And that was, boss fired me after 17 years with no warning, but I knew something they didn't. A story that makes you think about the real price of revenge. What did you think of Arthur's actions? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for listening to ABC English Story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for our next story.